Hello, hello, hello. On today's live stream, we're going to be talking about hands-off comic book Kickstarter fulfillment. This one will be especially valuable for all of my overseas watchers who want to put their books into the hands of the biggest audience on Kickstarter, which is primarily US backers, but want to find a way to do that that's not going to cost an arm and a leg from a fulfillment standpoint. And this will also be great for those of you that love creating and writing comics and making comics and launching comics, have no desire to pack and ship them. So this is good. I have a great guest to talk all about that. And speaking of my guest today is the writer of Damsel from Distress, Star Bastard, Child of the Machine, and Bet Noir. And he is coming to us, a UK creator who is currently based in Dubai. So welcome to Comics Launch, Andrew Clemson. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I'm thrilled that we were able to make this cross continental broadcast a possibility. I understand this is your first live stream on the press junket for your latest Kickstarter, which is
first live stream ever.
First live stream ever. All right.
I've got to be careful not to swear. I'll be extra careful.
Well, yeah, I don't know. The Comics Launch audience isn't, they've heard it all, I'm sure, by now. But we'll keep it clean for those of us watching this in the car with the kids. But I'm excited to talk to you, man. I'm really thrilled at the success of your latest series, which is Damsel from Distress. It's on Kickstarter right now and rocking and rolling after launching just a short while ago, closing in on 10K with a lot of time left on the clock and already 300 plus backers. Talk to us before we get into all we're going to talk about today. Just tell us a little bit about the series Damsel from Distress. What's the series about? Who's it for? What was inspired? How did it inspire? And yeah, tell us what you want, what people should know about this latest book from you.
So this is this book is a sort of fantasy comedy adventure book. It takes elements of like spy stuff like James Bond or Man from U.N.C.L.E., mashes it up with Zelda, Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. So it's just a fun way to mash those things all together and have some fun with both genres. But it sort of focuses around a hotshot secret agent who has sort of family skeletons in the closet, and she has to go on this mission, and whilst on it she sort of discovers all of those skeletons and learns how to deal with them and learns who she really is.
Yeah, James Bond meets D&D. I love that that sort of high concept. It touches a lot of bases, and it's a beautiful looking book.
Elves and espionage was the tagline we had for it.
Yeah, nice. Elves and espionage. I love it. Launch is off to a great start. And your last launch, the first one for Damsel in Distress, had over 585 backers. Big launch, big growth from your previous launch. What do you attribute that to?
I don't know. I mean, I did the first book I did was D.I.S.T.R.E.S S, keep it clean, which I did sort of 2016, 2017. I did 2 issues on Kickstarter, and then it got picked up through Scout Comics, so it moved off the platform and went, straight to the direct market. But the best, that was my first experience with Kickstarter, and I went in cold. I'd backed some things, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Went in cold, and I think I did about 1,400 quid, 1,500 quid, something like that. So I guess that's like $2,000, give or take.
Yep.
We had about 100 backers. I then took, like I say, I went to the direct market, and we sold, 400, 500 times as many copies to that. But there's always there's always an imbalance in the numbers between those two different ways of working. So I came back to this one, having done your course and been part of the community and learned over the last few years and seen, backed a lot of stuff and learned from that, but also from talking to people and, picking up those tips, went into it a bit better prepared. And I think having built an audience, from the previous series and, made a lot more connections on social media, Twitter and, groups and things like that. So I think that all came together to give us a good boost to a project which I think is quite a hot genre at the minute. This sort of fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons adjacent kind of worlds, and it just did really well. It blew me away how well it did in the first issue.
Yeah.
Like I say, I did almost 600 backers, which is where we come into the bit, talking about facilitating all that and fulfilling it. It just, that was the bit I wasn't prepared for. So,
yeah,
going to this one's a different animal.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's a lot of creators out there who haven't launched yet on Kickstarter, and they're very concerned about like, oh, God, I got all these projects, and which one's the right one to launch first. And like, what, oh, if I don't have that big first launch, what is that going to say? And it's like, you know what, at some point, the market's going to do what the market's going to do, but you got to launch it. And just because your first launch does, a certain amount, it has a certain reaction, that doesn't mean that the next one or the next one after that won't get a completely different reaction. And that this is really a platform that you're investing and you're building equity in. And so, the sky, like there is no ceiling or cap based on, one launch or another. And so I'm glad that you've just stuck with it. You've continued to build the network there, and you're seeing the results. Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing sort of two series at the same time. I have another book called Bête Noire, which is like a sort of superhero vigilante series. And we're kind of leapfrogging those. I mean, it's run from a different account. So my publisher for that, which is called Mad Robot Comics, they run that one through their account. So what I'm able to do is kind of leapfrog one to the other one. So while I'm fulfilling this one, I'm working on the other book. And then while that one's fulfilling, I can come back to another campaign.
And I should bring that up. That is something that it seems like Kickstarter is being a little bit more active in and clamping down on creators like launching multiple projects before fulfilling the previous project on the same account. And so, for creators out there that are working on a bunch of different things and are, have multiple teams going on at once. I know a lot of writers might be working on 3 or 4 different books at the same time. If your ability to just continually like launching the next one as soon as the last one ends, that may actually be something that Kickstarter starts to enforce. I know we had a creator that tried to get his pre-order page up for his next launch while his previous launch was still live, and Kickstarter shut that down, and they basically said that they want him to fulfill his one before,
which is fair enough.
The next one. Yeah,
that's how it should be. It's just, it's one thing if you're going into these things with everything done and all you got to do is hit print and get them out. But most of us have to use the platform to raise the funds to create the thing, right? So it's a weird thing. And like you say, as a writer, you're going to have all these ideas that you can work on faster than an artist can.
Right.
So you're limited by how many you can put out. So it's, really it's just about finding that way of maximizing how many launches you can get in a year, which is what I'm trying to do with the sort of leapfrog method.
Yeah. And sort of, and so it makes sense like to have a couple of different brands if you're going to be working with different teams and different accounts. If it feels like they're going to start stacking up on one another. One question I wanted to ask about the latest launch. You have it set up so that I think the first launch was for the first issue, and you're doing. It looks like you're funding 2 and 3 in this one. What was the decision point to try to fund 2 issues in one launch versus serializing them?
Kind of like what I was saying before, like you can only focus on, I'm working on 3 different things at the minute, and you want to get them all out. And I struggle to focus on another thing. There's only so much bandwidth you can work with, working on things at once. So I kind of need to be able to put things to one side, even if it's just briefly between volumes. So, if I do 2 issues at a time, it lets us squeeze in 1 more campaign a year, because I'm not spending that time. It's the same amount of time really, because we do a bit, there's a bit of legwork before and everything. It's the same amount of time really to run a project and fulfill 2 issues as it is for 1. So if I was to do 1 issue, there'd be the same gap between campaigns, but I'm getting less work out. So if I do 2, I'm doing it's basically just like a 48-page oversized, but I'm doing 2 issues, leapfrog that, 2 issues of the next series, the other series, back again 2 issues. After both of them have done a campaign for the first one to test the waters, and that's 2 full volumes, 2 full series in a year with space for another thing as well. So and it gets people. I mean, on the first issue of this one in particular, I had a lot of messages from people saying, you say it's 5 issues, how long is that going to take?
Right.
I'm not going to back 1 issue, wait 6 months, back another one. I'll wait until you do the full volume and I'll back that. So I think you're able to claw back some of those, trade waiters, because you're saying, look, if you just pick it up, it'll just be a couple of campaigns. You're not going to be waiting too long, and you're able to, claw back some of those pledges that you might have lost for the final campaign.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, it's hypothetical because I haven't done it yet. But that's the way we're thinking.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and as much as I get on this podcast every week and share best practices and rules and things like that, like the great thing about Kickstarter platform is there really aren't all that many rules in terms of, and you can really, it's a canvas to work on. And, if I was a creator that had just 1 series, it probably makes sense to do them serialized, at least in terms of the amount of funding that you're going to raise. But when you're factoring other things like mental bandwidth, the need to set up the pages and do it and have your pre-launch runway and set up all of your marketing plans and to go on all these podcasts, like it takes a lot. And so, the cost benefit analysis and the time, energy, funding, like there's a complicated matrix, and it's not like the calculus is going to be different for different creators. And so, you're experimenting with something here, and you're going to learn, like this is, we talked about it on Comics Launch, and I'm sure, we'll be looking forward to your, post-mortem debrief on this latest launch, on what you learned and what worked and what didn't, and what you'll try differently next time. And that's really what it is about being a creator. But sort of speaking to that and lessons learned through action, Kickstarter wasn't your first focus for the first series. You actually, for your first series, you were focused on Diamond distribution, and before, and then you switched over and took a closer look at Kickstarter. Talk a little bit about that experience and where you see Diamond fitting in for the independent creator.
So yeah, we did Starbuster. We did 2 issues, and then Scout took it. So I did what I think everyone did, and thought, no, I'm going to go straight into Diamond. This is comic shops, because it's what everyone dreams of, right? It's
right.
Seeing the book in Diamond in the comic store. But we took it off the platform, sort of bankrolled it that way, and then put it out. And of course, even if it does really well, you have to do phenomenally well in that market to make anywhere near a fraction of what you can make in a sort of crowdfunding scenario. And so for Bet-Noir and Damsel and the other books I'm working on, I just wanted to make sure that before anyone saw the book, everyone was paid. And I think the only way you can do that is by crowdfunding it and getting that kind of funding ahead of schedule. And I mean, luckily for me, luckily for everyone, there are publishers, Scout in particular, who aren't too scared of letting people crowdfund it. It was kind of, I think a lot of people would be turned off if you approached them with a book and said, I've already put it out on Kickstarter, but can I now publish it through Diamond? I think it's changing now, but I mean, that mindset was crazy because, like I said, I did 100 backers on Kickstarter and then did about 5,000 copies of the first issue through the direct market. So, they're not going to cannibalize each other. So I think that's something that's changing. But for this, it was very much a case of whether this goes to a publisher afterwards and whether it goes through the direct market. We're going to put it onto Kickstarter first, get everyone paid, have the thing in the black, and then take it on as a sort of clean asset, if that's something we do down the road. Yeah. And I mean, it really is the math gets really tough if Diamond is what you're leading with. And the reason for that is, well, yes, 5,000 copies, that's a tremendous amount of copies. But in most cases,
you have a cap on what on like the price that you're charging, right? It's $3.99 book or a $4.99 book. Okay. $4.99, $5 times 5,000. That's $25,000, right? Well, no, it's not $25,000 because Diamond is buying them at a steep discount. They're taking, they're paying you 40 cents on the dollar for what gets charged, and then also you have to pay for those books. Those books still need to be printed. They still need to be shipped. And a 5,000 copy print run is not a small print run. And then the other fun thing for creators doing series, right, is that unlike Kickstarter, where you get you do your launch and the funds come in usually before you go and print the thing, it's reversed with Diamond, right, where you have to send them the books, and then after they receive them, send them an invoice, and they will, pay you down the line. They'll, 30 days, they'll turn it around. I actually had an issue where I realized that I was, had 3 invoices that hadn't been paid in 90 days because the person that I'd sent them to was no longer with the company, and they didn't catch it. I didn't catch it because I'm doing other stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, I got to get on that. But yeah, it's a different channel. It is the direct pipeline into comic shops, which is great. It is a way to really scale the numbers and the reach of your book, and you can get a lot more numbers than you could on Kickstarter in terms of total copies ordered, et cetera, in most cases. But as far as funds raised and just a financial impact, it's usually less.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, the best way to describe it is I'm basically using Kickstarter to create the book, as it does what it says in the tin, and then I'm using the direct market when it happens in the future. That's kind of marketing for me and the rest of the team and the book. That's what, I expect nothing more than people seeing it and people remembering the name and remembering the experience of reading it, and hopefully that gets people onto bigger and better things.
Yeah, and I think it's another important thing I hit on the podcast a lot, like this or that thinking usually makes us miss the better answer. The better choice is this and that. And you saw that, like, having a scout name on a different book and building a little bit of a name there, and probably getting connected with other creators that are doing cool, like, genre mashup, fantasy mashup stuff, like Charlie Stickney, like the White Ash audience, like that's a perfect audience to check out Damsel and Distress as well. And just making those connections, getting that in right, like, can then pay off, maybe not so much on Diamond for that first time around, but that next Kickstarter launch, and then that feeds into the next Diamond launch, and it becomes this virtuous circle. But it can take a while to build. So let's get into one of the reasons I was really excited to bring you on here, is because you did move to Kickstarter. You have had a number of successful Kickstarter projects. Your last one, over 500 backers, close to 600 backers. But you have an interesting challenge that a lot of creators don't, in where you live, and what that means for your ability to actually get books in people's hands. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I live and work in Dubai, from the UK, but I'm living in Dubai at the minute, and it's very futuristic in some ways, but post is not one of them. So if I wanted to ship a single comic book to someone, if I ran a web store or something like that, the single comic book would probably cost me $20 on top of the cost of the book to ship it to someone, which is you're never going to make a sale. It's not a way to do anything. So what I used to do was I would wait until, we would go back to the UK on vacation, go back home, books would be at my house when I got there, package them all up, ship them all out. It was all timed very specifically.
It doesn't sound like much of a vacation.
No, I mean, we usually time them around a Comic-Con as well, so
Yeah,
it's much of a vacation. But you know, that works, you know, in one way. But then if you get a message a week after you've gone back home, oh, my book's missing, or my book's damaged, I need another one, you know, your profits are just disappearing, you know, just constantly. And you know, you're also limited, you know, trying to get everything out in a tiny window. When I did the second Starbasted one, that's when my son was born. So I was, you know, my head was all over the place, and you know, I was late getting stuff out and all this kind of stuff. So it just doesn't. I mean, it wasn't really working before COVID, but now obviously we couldn't get back to do anything.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been on one of your podcasts actually. I basically got sent to Comic Impressions about printing, you know, and hearing that they could do the fulfillment as well. And I just figured, well, yeah, I'll just pay someone to take all the books, package them all up, and ship them all out. So what I ended up doing, I mean, the big problem you get, a lot of UK, I think it works both ways, but as a UK creator, a lot of those books from Europe and the UK struggle to get a lot of American backers because the post is so prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
So the other bonus of getting it fulfilled in the States straight from printer was even though it seems like a lot of money to get that thing packaged up and shipped out, it's still way less than it would be to ship it from the UK. So American backers, at least the ones I've spoken to, were like, well, yeah, that seemed like a good deal because the post was quite cheap compared to a lot of other UK Kickstarters.
Yeah.
So what it let me do is keep the price of the book low, and then, you know, people are happy on both sides because they're paying a decent price for, you know, a crowdfunded book, and then not too much for their shipping. So I just basically split the fulfillment, and I got the printer at Comic Impressions to do all the fulfillment to the States, but then everywhere outside of the States, I mean, even Canada, you know, the shipping cost from the States to Canada was about 3 times what it was from the UK to Canada. Which weird. Was just insanity. It was about
it is nuts what shipping is doing, and I don't really know why it's so expensive, but yeah, like, you know, I've been overseeing the shipping for our Wailing Blade book, and you know, it's like $33 to ship to the UK for a hardcover. It's
which kills you.
Insanity.
You know, people are gonna. One of those messages I had said, "Look, I can't. I would back this, but I'm going to be paying, you know, at the end of the day, if you do 5 campaigns, I'll probably spend $180 to get the series of 5 comic books. So no offense, but I'm going to wait until you do a trade paperback and I'll do one and, you know, pay 50 or whatever." So what I did was I got them to do all the fulfillment in the States, then package everything else up, ship it to the UK to my house there. Obviously I couldn't get there this time. So my poor parents had to sort of go through it, and it was like a family affair. I had, you know, my mum and my dad going through and patching everything, and so it was like a 2-pronged fulfillment. You know, the States through the printer, everything else from the UK. But for this one, I found basically the same thing in the UK. So I won't touch anything. It will just be, you know, US backers from the printer, and you know, rest of world will go out from a fulfillment company in the UK, which is called Buy Small Press. You can find them on Twitter.
So I'm sure mom and dad will be happy about that as well.
I think they enjoyed it. I think it was, you know, they're stuck inside.
What's a variant? What is a
No, they did. I mean, this is the thing they're confused because you obviously have a slight overprint.
Yeah.
And I sent them, you know, I think they had to do something like 180 books was their share of things. And I sent them 250 bags and boards. And they're like, we've run out of these things. What do we do? And I was like, how have you run out? You've got an exact, what is happening? But they got into this sort of rhythm so quickly that they were just, you know, bag, board, comic, bag, board, comic. And they were just going through the whole thing. So they've done just, you know, like a machine, just piles of comics. But I think they enjoyed it because they were stuck inside, and it was, you know, it was a little project to do. But yeah, especially in this sort of, the state the world's in, even though everyone's, you know, getting or is vaccinated, it means I don't have to send my parents down to the post office during all this. So it's much easier to just pay someone. You factor that in. It's such a negligible amount if you do the maths properly, to just not have the stress of having to do any of that. I don't have storage.
Yep.
I can't keep books. So these campaigns, I print to the number on the campaign. I never have additional stock.
Mm.
So unfortunately, that hits the next, subsequent campaigns. A lot of people have got stock that they're making money off, campaign to campaign. I don't have that. Like the last one, all the books I had that were left over, I sent to comic shops and said, you sell these, you give the money to Hero Initiative, with Square. So I'll be reprinting for the second one.
So is that what you'll do on this one? Like you're gonna print with comic impressions, you'll print issues 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah. So I'll basically reprint, the same things. I mean, I don't think you've got the same sort of, the pressure to call it first print, second print, third print, in the crowdfunding market. So I think, it'll just be a reprint of the first one, the new ones. We're not going to reprint all of the variants that we did for the first. We did one variant, but I've got 20 or 30, and I doubt, they're only available in one of the higher tiers on this one. So I think I've got enough to handle that, and I'll just send them out as a separate package. But yeah, the one downside is I'm limited to what I can offer, because everything has to be handled by, really, I can only offer what is printed at Comic Impressions. So I can't do T-shirts and pins and badges and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's the downside. But, comics, the prints, things like that, they just do it all. They package it all up. They send you a bill. It's done.
Yeah. The upside is you're done after the campaign is over. It's
a bit awkward sometimes, because they go, oh, did you send this one out? And I have to go, I can't just go, yes. I have to sort of go back through the communications and double check everything. But, they had 100% track record so far with what I've been doing. So.
That's great. And then in the UK, so did you find someone that's doing just fulfillment and Comic Impressions is shipping to them, or did you find someone that's going to print and ship in the UK?
Well, there's a very good printer in the UK. It's called Comic Printing UK, a chap called Rich. I think anyone who's from the UK and has done a book, they would more than likely have gone through him, because his, it's just the best quality you can get on the market back home. But for this one, it's kind of just a case of seeing what the numbers look like when we get a final count, and seeing what it costs to get everything done at Comic Impressions and shipped over. Yeah, factor in that. But with a higher number. But then again, I'm not printing thousands, so it's not like printing 200 more is going to get me a discount. So it might reflect better to get some of them printed in the UK and that kind of thing. But then this facilitation company is called Buy Small Press. They, does what it says on the tin. They host small press books, sell them for you and all that kind of stuff. But they're opening up a fulfillment arm. That's so great. He'll do everything out. You ship it over, he keeps the books, he packages them, ships them out, and then he, for a fee, he'll just keep it there and run a web store for you. So it's kind of an extra stream of income that hopefully will work just as well. Yeah, and so that's in the UK. So I mean, potentially, that could be an option for most US creators that want to have a little bit more of an impact and may potentially want to save some money by sending a bulk of packages to for the UK and EU. Now, I've been handing his number out to everyone, going, tell him you code it from me. So I get a good deal.
Well, nice. Well, I'm sure he'll get a few more. He'll get a few more, and we'll try to get links for all these from the show notes and everything. And we know Comic Impressions is a sponsor of this show, and we love working with Rich and his team. I'm curious, the Brexit thing. Has that impacted anything yet for you from a fulfillment side of things? And what do creators need to know about that?
I mean, I think the comic side of it is the least impact. I mean, that generally is just a complete, I'll keep it clean. So it's just not a great state of affairs, but there is definitely a change to how you have to do things. There's a much more hectic customs sticker form that you have to put on all the packages that go out. I forget what it's called. It's like CN44 or something like this. You can go down the post office and get reels of these things, and you have to put value of package, weight of package, destination, what is it, all this kind of stuff. And it's a lot more than you used to have to do, because obviously Europe, it was all single market. It was easy. So there's a big change to interacting with Europe, and there's potentially big problems because it becomes a VAT issue and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, hopefully, because it's not me sending anything, I just get a bill and I don't have to do any paperwork. But there definitely are problems for the UK creators sending it to the EU. I don't think necessarily a lot changes for the rest of the world. It's just that like everywhere, the post office is just struggling and no one knows what the rules are, and stuff gets over, everyone's just, they've got too much to deal with. So I think it's probably going to cause wait times and stuff like that. But
yeah. And for US based creators, I think you've been doing that for a while on your international packages, and hopefully you're using tools like, whether it be ShipStation or stamps.com or, BackerKit to do your shipping, so that you're checking boxes and you're doing that digitally, and you're not spending time hand filling out forms at the post office.
I mean, the Royal Mail does all that stuff as well. You can go on, create an account.
Yeah. You
can upload your Kickstarter spreadsheet direct from Kickstarter, and it just auto populates your checkout, and you pay for everything and print out labels. So it's very similar.
Nice.
But I think this form is an additional thing. There's quite clever people selling on eBay. So it's all, you give them some of the details, they fill it out and send you like 500 already filled out.
Right.
And then all you got to do is sign them.
There you go.
But it's just one more headache someone has to deal with. Not me though.
Yeah, not you. That's the important point. So we guys I know we have some process junkies that watch this show, and I understand that your process as a writer and as a comic creator has sort of evolved from series to series. You want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you're doing differently now, and maybe the journey that you've been on just as a creator, figuring out how you make these books above and beyond just the launching them?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely figuring it out. That's the operative word. But I started like everyone. I wanted to, it's just like a bucket list thing. I had a friend at school that passed away, and I was like, when I was a kid, I wanted a comic, so I'm going to do one. So I started to write everything, and I wanted to write this big epic thing. And I was talking to artists, we were putting it together, and I got a bit stressed out from trying to like plan, these twists in issue 3 for it, the big reveal in issue 103 or something. So I just did this sort of nonsense paragraph that basically became Star Bastard, and I sent that out, and the artists sort of reacted completely different, and they took it on and said, yeah, this looks like fun. Let's do this. Let's ignore these ones. We'll do this. This is fun. And so, got working with Jethro Morales, who was the artist, and, we took it from there. And I think that's why it did quite well, was just because it was fun. It was just a, fun nonsense comic book about, all these guys having adventures in space. But the one thing that came from that was I was winging it all the way through. So I was like, I'll just do one. Oh, people like it. Oh, I better do a second one. So it was very much writing issue by issue and trying to string a story through the whole thing. Whereas, everything now, I'm working with editors to kind of do what I can't, which is, take these ideas, these initial ideas. I always do 1 or 2 scripts first, and sort of condense them down to something that makes sense and make sure we know where those are going in the future. So the biggest change has been just planning things properly and not just going book to book to book, having a plan all the way through. And, that, especially knowing the model we're doing, which is, the Kickstarter model, we know how to write it. Everything tends to have a big, cliffhanger at the end, more so than a lot of stuff does. So that's just a way of keeping people engaged for the next thing. And I don't know, I still try and make everything just fun. Like, I'm not doing overly serious books. I'm just doing things that I would like to read, just to blow off some steam, which is, what it is to write. It's just, it's just helping me to blow off some steam. But in terms of the way things have changed, I think I lean more into, letting the other people on the team have as much input and from the outset as possible. Whereas at first it was like, this is my idea, we've got to do it.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things, but I have noticed that with a lot of novice writers and people working on their first project, it's like often the person with the least experience wants the most control, and they're micromanaging your artist that is on his 500th page where this is your first one. But that's definitely something that is pretty common. So if that has been you in the past, you know what, you're not alone with that. But when you actually can lean in, something that I think helps is actually looking at some pro writers out there. Mark Miller's scripts are notoriously very lean. Rich Douek, was able to, he doesn't a page of his comic scripts usually are a page or less of written out. And it's like when you're writing 10 pages for a single page, Alan Moore could get away with that. Most of us aren't Alan Moore.
No, I mean, I try and keep mine to a page just because I think it's just, I like it to be neat and fit in that page. So I will inevitably trim it down so that everything fits there. And I try and put as much descriptive stuff as needs to be in there, but it is not Alan Moore. It's not Marvel method, but it's somewhere in the middle, because I know I'll say, this is how I see this shot being framed, but inevitably the artist is going to see it a better way, and it's going to come out better than if I stick to my guns, right, and just say you have to do it like this. So, I just think, I mean, for me, my stuff tends to be, the only thing I'm a stickler for is beats, because a lot of it is comedy. So I just want to make sure this line is delivered in this panel and this line is delivered here. And, that's the only thing I'm really a stickler for is pacing, but, and page turns and things like that. But everything else, sometimes panels disappear and panels appear and, stuff goes everywhere. I just think it's fun. I think it's more fun coming back with something you weren't expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I have been, I'm someone that I want to be a super planner, plotter, etc., mastermind. But when I actually, and I almost feel like I can't sit down and write unless I know where I'm going to. But one of the best things about writing is when you're an hour into the session and you're writing stuff that I have no idea where this came from, but love it. And this is how it's going to be. So leaving yourself enough room to discover as you write, while at the same time, not walking yourself into a corner. That is something that I think only comes from practice, and then also working with editors and being able to take feedback or just have someone else take a look at it and say, well, you know what? Here's where I think you're going off a little bit, and can we reel this in to make this stronger? I mean, finding a good editor can do that.
Yeah, I mean, Hassan Osman Alhau is the editor and letter on Damsel, and man, I'd done 2 issues. I handed them to him, and he came back and went, right, so this is 1 issue. We can take all of this out. You don't need any of this. We'll squeeze it down. And it was just, you just have this light bulb moment where you're like, yeah, obviously that's what this is, and it's gone from a funny idea to a nice tight little story in that issue. And I think that's the other thing that I've learned is I work a lot better if I have an idea, rather than focusing on making it as good as possible. I just vomit the thing out, get it 24 pages out, and then, close the document, put it somewhere. And then you can come back to it later with fresh eyes and sort of polish it. But, I would spend a week just looking at the same 12 pages, not be able to go anywhere. But now, I'll just type, skip a page if I have to, go back, put the thing away, move on to something else and come back. And it helps me get, my writing's a lot better for it, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Sage Anthony Rodriguez asked this one. We'll see if you have any ideas or thoughts on it, but I'm wondering if Sage is working on one right now. But he says, what are the do's and don'ts for making a coming of age story?
Well, unless it's a question about, laser blasts or talking dinosaurs, I don't know if I'm going to be as good at answering that question. I don't know if you've got a particular answer for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that if that is the genre that you're working in, coming of age thing, there are specific rules and specific beats and specific things that are expected for that. And so whether you're writing a romantic comedy or you're writing action or revenge or a heist, like there are certain beats and things that you want to hit, and then there are also certain things that you want to like I found that like you need to know the key, those key beats or those key moments and the rules of the genre that you're working in, so that you can hit and subvert. Because that's some of the things that I think is most if we don't like there's some people that like, I don't want to read anything or look at anything that's even remotely similar to what I'm doing, because I don't want to be influenced and then end up like regurgitating it and just sort of copying it or repeating a tired trope. But it's almost like if you don't know the tropes at all, you're probably more likely to stumble upon a trope like absentmindedly. Yeah. And so like, go ahead.
I was saying, like, yeah, there's that argument for like, you know, whatever you're doing, as long as you understand how that genre works, you can do whatever you like. You can break things, you can, you know, follow the rules or whatever. But the other thing is, you know, just because you are writing a coming of age story or whatever genre, doesn't mean you have to follow any rules, right? Your thing, you could start writing that, you know, this is what we're saying about getting it out. You write it, you might find that it's something completely different, and you might decide, okay, it's less of this thing and it's more of this thing. So, you know, I don't have to worry about those rules. Yeah. You know, your thing might be the coming of age part. You look at these things on Netflix, like how many coming of age zombie dramas do we get now? Like it seems to be a new thing. Like, so it's kind of, you know, I think, you know, if that's really the critical element of your story, yeah, worry about, you know, do I want to follow it or do I want to break it? But, you know, there might be another aspect which is more important or more interesting. And then, you know, just focus on that. If you know something else better, write that.
Yeah. And I, you know, the other thing that I think is advice for all things is like, a lot of times we as creators will come up with this great high concept or stuff. It's like, oh yeah, or a great title for something. And that's what it is. It's a title and it's a high concept. Going that next level and being like, all right, why is like, what about this is a story that only I can tell? What about, and so like, if you're writing a coming of age story, I hope there will be some elements in that that are lived truth or things personal. that you've experienced or personal that literally no one else on the planet would be able to tell in that exact same way. I mean, find a way to work that in because that is the secret sauce that only you can bring. And as much like the creators that are able to imbue that in their work, even subtly, like definitely tend to resonate. So
yeah, you know, or have zombies. That's the other thing. Just make sure you add zombies or dinosaurs.
Yeah, zombies or dinosaurs or you know, an attractive heroine who can kick a little butt. Yeah. Well, cool. I mean, we could talk process, we could talk this stuff all day, but I want to respect your time on the other side of the planet here. But we do have a little bit of time for Comics on Speed Round. You ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. Finish the sentence. Kickstarter is blank.
Invaluable for you know, for indie creators. Like you wouldn't get any. I don't think you get 90% of the books out there in any market if Kickstarter didn't exist, because either the book is made on Kickstarter or the creator has made their bones on Kickstarter and has moved on to something else. So without it, you know, I don't think we'd have any indie comics of value, or at least not the amount we do.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, $25 million, I think, was raised on Kickstarter last year for comic projects. That most of that money has been injected through the greater indie comic and comic economy. You know, that's writers, that's artists, that's flatters, that's I mean, Hassan, you mentioned him. He's working on like that guy's one of the hardest working guys in the business, whether it's lettering and editing and all the other stuff that he does. Like all of that becomes possible when creators understand that they have more options than like a high interest credit card and a hope that some publisher will pick it up. It's like, and that's something that like a decade ago just did not, well, excuse was a little, so 15 years ago, like it just didn't exist. Like everything was so much more of a risk. And that's not to say there is no risk with this stuff. And it's not to say that everything is going to make a profit or you know, let you quit your day job or all that other stuff.
No,
but these things can exist. And that's the first step.
If you do your maths right, you know, you shouldn't really be aiming for profit. You should be aiming to have the thing exist so that you can make profit down the road, you know, be that through career, you know, advancement, or be that through, you know, selling them at cons if cons ever come back, or web stores and stuff. I think that's what people need to do, is just, this is what I need for this thing to exist, and that's what I'm going to aim for. Whereas you see a lot of big targets still, especially from people who are just joining it, you know, and they're 15, 20 grand target for a comic. So I think it's something to make a thing, and then you can take that thing and do what you need to do with it. Absolutely.
Let's pretend the powers that be a Kickstarter are listening. If you could change one thing about the platform, what would it be?
I think I would potentially split, like the app is super useful, but I think having an app which is just for project creators, which is a bit more in depth, you know, I have so many things where just messages get lost because I'm getting messages from campaigns I've backed, and I'm getting messages from people trying to, you know, interact with us and stuff like that. I don't know. I just wish there was some way of splitting that, be that a different app or, you know, some different interface.
But I definitely have found that the Kickstarter app for creators is not as, it's hard to find all the stuff that you can find when you're logging in on the desktop. And sometimes I'm just like, why can't I find this message, or why can't I get to X, Y, or Z? But
the other thing, and I don't know if this is, I'm sure it's been addressed before, and I'm sure it doesn't confuse other people as much as it does me. The way the funding is displayed, I just feel it would be a lot easier for me to understand where I am in a project if the shipping and the actual pledge were a separate number, even if that's broken down.
So you know, I actually don't know, because I saw someone asking about this, but they weren't able to point it out. Do you have, and you can check afterwards, but do you have a fulfillment tab on your Kickstarter account? I'm trying to log in.
So the last campaign is probably the one to look at, right? The one
that's already done. Be up.
It should
even be. Yeah, so it should be up even for your live one.
Yeah, it is.
I'm pulling it up there. So there should be a spot in there that breaks out what your shipping is. It's taken for there should be a spot that shows how much of your campaign is going to shipping.
Yeah, it does. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So there you have it. That is that thing. Now, if you're like what a lot of US creators do, and they give free US shipping, doesn't help you as much. It'll only show what you're getting for international. So it's less helpful there. But if you're charging shipping for every backer, then that will show you that clearly. So
I mean, it would still be. I still don't get why it's not. You know, the goal isn't, you know, is exclusive of shipping. I still don't understand why shipping is factored into the target. But I assume that's just to make sure people calculate it properly and factor it into their campaign, as opposed to just thinking it'll be dealt with later. But for me, it would be great to know, okay, the art's done. Yeah. You know, and if the art's done, everyone's paid for their shipping because we've done that properly. But, you know, so it just confuses me.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. What's your secret weapon? A tool, a resource, an app that you couldn't make comics without?
I think it's a double-edged sword, because I would just say social media. Like it helps to see what people are doing. You know, in one way, it helps to see how people are doing. You can judge how well Kickstarter projects are doing at any time. You can see what kind of books are selling. You can see what's popular and things like that. But then, you know, the flip side of that is that you imposter syndrome and feeling like you're not doing as well as other people because everyone's talking about their big successes and stuff. But for me, as someone who hasn't had access to conventions as much, I get one a year on top of the one we have here, which is really more of like a lot of places, a Funko Pop convention. Social media is where I've had to gather all this information to create a comic from script to fulfillment. Yeah. I've had to learn by interacting with other creators and things like that. So, picking how you interact with that social media. But for me, block who you have to block and mute who you have to mute, and don't get engaged in things you don't need to get engaged in. But there's some real gems of information, and you can access anyone, any creator from the bottom to the top. If they're on there, you can get to them and you can learn. So for me, that's the most valuable tool. That and a Heineken at the end of the day when I'm trying to get through the thing.
Absolutely. Promotion's an area that many Kickstarters struggle with. Do you have one small promotion tip for listeners?
I am terrible at promotion. So I am not the person to do it. But what I tend to do, I go to a convention and I will push the people next to me more than I will myself. I'll say, they'll come up and go, tell me about your book. And I say, yes, all right. But this guy over here has got an amazing book. You should check it out. So I that's just the way I am. I'm not good at shouting about myself, but I do that online as well. So the best thing I've found is if you struggle to promote your own stuff and find it easy to promote other people's stuff, do that, because invariably those people will return the favor and promote you.
Yeah.
There's a great community of people. A lot of these backers that we're getting on these campaigns are other creators that are, everyone's chipping in to help each other out. So the best promotion tip I have is, if you are struggling to promote your own work, try and direct some of that energy into other people, see if it's easier. And if it is, I'm sure you'll get some of that favor returned down the road. Yeah.
And, if anything, you're showing your audience and the people that are following you that you have great taste. And so that's, and oddly enough, like if you're promoting really good projects and they're backing them and liking them, when you come around and you launch yours, they're like, oh yeah, it must be good. Look at all the good stuff you sent my way already. Well, speaking of that, and this is a perfect segue to that, can you recommend one comic or book not done by you that more people need to check out?
Is this on a Kickstarter book or just generally?
Could be Kickstarter or general.
So the book, I read a book last year. It's another Scout book, but it's called Grit. I don't know if you've read that one.
I've heard good things. I haven't checked it out yet though.
It's really good. It's like 3 issues. It's a very short book, but you can get all 3 in a trade now. And it's really good. It's just it's kind of like Clint Eastwood in a sort of, sword and sorcery environment. It's like Clint Eastwood playing The Witcher. And it's just this cranky old man, going around sort of dealing with monsters and stuff. And I just really enjoyed it. It was by Brian Wickman and Kev Castanero, who did some variants for me on Damsel. But it was a really, really fun book. And I still speak to people who haven't heard of it, which I think is a crime. So that's the one I would push. Grit. Nice. And Ultra Mega, that's fun as well.
We'll sort of check those out. Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Andrew. I love it. Thanks for all the tips and the outside the box thinking on fulfillment that you shared. Do you sort of have and if your parents are available, all of a sudden your mom's going to be blowing up.
It's a little business for them in their retirement. Yeah,
there you go. Do you have one final piece of advice for creators out there that are thinking about getting into this wild world of indie comics?
Yeah, like the thing is, like I say, I struggle to tell people my stuff's amazing. It doesn't matter how well this thing does. I'll still go, yeah, I had fun doing it. You should check it out. That's how a lot of people are from the start, and they struggle to ever get something out. Like they work on something and say, well, it's not quite perfect. Like, I can't put this out to the public. My brother did a comic, spent all the money, got it made, full issue 1, never printed it because he just couldn't put it out there for people's opinions. Yeah. And invariably, the first thing you do is probably going to be terrible. So get the terrible one out and move on to the next thing. Like, don't just not launch anything and not create anything. Just get something out and learn as you do it, and try and get better with everything, because there's too many people who, you know, they sit on, potentially it might be the greatest thing ever, you know, it could be the book of the year, but because they haven't got confidence, because they've not put anything out yet, they don't do it. So, you know, speaking from someone who wrote a lot of rubbish stuff, you know, and is getting better every time, hopefully, like, just put the imperfect book out into the world, and get better as you do another one and another one and another one, and eventually, you know, you'll be decent, maybe amazing. Yeah. So that's the only advice I have.
There's a lot of decent creators making a lot,
yeah.
building a huge fan base and generating a lot of funding on Kickstarter and beyond. So
yeah,
you know,
but they were terrible at some point.
Exactly.
You know, everyone's going to do it. So just get it out of the system, and just get out and keep making stuff until you're good.
Absolutely, I love that, and I think that's a great way to put a pin in this one. It's been a thrill, talking to you today. It's been enjoyable having you as a great member of the Comics Launch Pro community, and just seeing you continue to grow. And I'm excited about where this new launch is rolling. And I'm thrilled for everything that you're doing. Besides the Kickstarter, Damsel from Distress. As we're recording this, it's 28 days to go, and so you've got a lot of time on the clock, and a lot of room left to climb with over 330 backers already. Besides this Kickstarter, what's the best way for listeners to connect with you going forward?
I've got a website, which is, I got it up there, but all it is really a picture and an email address. But that's clemsoncomics.com. So you can contact me through there. But I'm most active on Twitter. So if you can, stomach the hellscape of Twitter, I'm there. You can interact. Send me whatever you need. I'll talk to anyone.
Absolutely. Well, awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much. Congrats on your success, and we can't wait to see so much more from you.
Thanks for having me on, man.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.